So I'm here with Father Carter of Bishop McGinnis. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, real quick?
Sure. So Father Noah Carter, I'm the chaplain here at Bishop McGinnis. I'm also the pastor of Holy Cross Catholic Church, which is the parish that Bishop McGinnis is in, within the parish boundaries. Originally from the Asheville area of North Carolina, and entered seminary right out of high school, and was ordained just over 6 years ago.
Wow! Congratulations. That's a long time ago. First off, I'd like to ask how personally COVID-19 has affected your Mass schedule and things along that nature, because I know you have to plan for not only Bishop Masses but also Holy Cross Masses as well.
Sure. So I contracted COVID in November of 2020, and it was after I actually thought that I recovered that I had an issue with pericarditis, so an infection in the pericardium, the sac around the heart, which, in order to recover from that, it requires more of a kind of a rest and relaxation schedule, because you don't want to overwork the heart, otherwise it won't heal. So it required me to only be able to celebrate one Mass a day. They thought that the stress of preaching and being kind of front and center in that. Some people don't realize, because you go to Mass once a Sunday, right, or once here at the school. You know, we have our school Masses and such, and you're just like, oh yeah, okay, that was Mass. A priest has to do that up to 3 times every single Sunday. It is a pretty exhausting schedule, and so it required me to reach out to a lot of priests in the area. We have Father Marcelo Amati, Father Moses Nojo, which 2 of our campus ministers on college campuses, and then also we have some retired priests in the area that have helped out as well.
Yeah. So how has their experience been as well? If you could add to that as well.
Their experience helping to cover, their experience just ministering during COVID?
I guess a little bit of both, just whichever you have an answer for, I guess.
So one of the priests who came in to help was Father A.J. Gallant. He's a retired priest living in Lexington, North Carolina. He actually had COVID towards the beginning, last year, and he actually suffered. He was in the hospital. I believe they actually had to put him on ventilation, but then he recovered. He had a friend of his that they retired down here together, who actually contracted it and died. So for him, it was that kind of personal loss and dealing with his own suffering. I have dubbed myself the plague priest, and I say that tongue in cheek. This is not unprecedented for the church. Right, it's gone through the Black Plague, it's gone through the outbreaks throughout history, and the Catholics need the sacraments. So what they usually do, especially in medieval Europe, is when there was an outbreak of some illness, they would literally find the youngest and fittest priest to be the plague priest, and they figured if he catches it, he'll probably be okay. So there's a lot of priests in the area who are in a very vulnerable category, who are not willing to go to the hospitals to anoint dying parishioners, to celebrate their funerals, things like that, because they were afraid that if they contracted it, that they would suffer worse consequences. So I was going into Greensboro and into Winston-Salem, 5, 6, 7 times each month, because they would call a parish and they would be like, no, you need to call somewhere else, we can't go. So being the youngest guy in the area, they would just, okay, call Father Carter. So I've probably been to every single hospital in Winston-Salem and Greensboro in the last year to anoint dying Catholics in ICU. And that's been difficult. We've had, I personally have done 19 funerals for COVID, related deaths. And that's from talking with other priests, a lot more than what they're seeing in their parishes. But that's for, kind of the whole area. So that has affected ministry. It's also been difficult because it's hard to minister to people who won't come to the church, right? It's hard to stay connected with the families that are just like, we're going to back off for a little bit and not be at Mass and not participate in the things that we've tried to provide for. And so keeping in touch with them and keeping them plugged in it's a difficult reality. It's a very difficult reality.
So how do you keep them, I guess, coming back? Because I know there's a lot of fears over COVID and contracting COVID through Mass and things like that. How do you try and keep your parishioners coming during this hectic time?
So I would say we deal with, and this is a generalization, but kind of three types. We have those who are going to come no matter what, right? They're just like, you know what, if I might get sick, I'm still going to go to Mass. And they were there, as soon as we opened back up, when we were allowed to last May. Then you have those who were just coming out of rote memory, just because, well, we're Catholic, this is what we do, and didn't have a Eucharistic faith. There, we might not see them again. We can try and reach out, we can send mailings, we can, call, we can, but, there's some households that we're just not going to see again. And then the third type are those who are being reasonably conscious about their own health, or because of a member in their family, where they say, as soon as we gauge that it's safe for us to come back, we'll come back. Those are a lot of the families. They're watching Mass online. They're still staying in touch by sending an email or calling every now and then, just see how things are going. So those are kind of the three general categories. Now that more people are being vaccinated and getting both vaccines, I'm seeing some of our older parishioners who haven't been to Mass in a year, and they're coming back and they're like, I got my vaccinations, I'm good to go. So the Mass attendance is on the rise, which is good to see.
Yeah, it's definitely good to see. I know my mom has, she's had us watch Mass online because she's immunodeficient, but we try to go as much as we possibly can.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of families that have those concerns.
So I guess when you had your extra health issues post-COVID, how did that impact your mental well-being and also, I guess, your faith and how you practiced your faith as well?
So, being a pastor and a chaplain makes for a very busy life. And so when I'm told I was under the care of 3 different doctors. I was under the care of a cardiologist, a hospitalist, and then my primary care physician. They all had 3 different opinions. So I kind of towed the middle road. My primary care physician and my cardiologist wanted me to take a medical leave of absence for 3 months. The problem is there were no priests to provide, and you can't shut down a parish for 3 months. And you can't tell a school like Bishop McGinnis, well, you're not going to have the sacraments for 3 months. That's just, that's kind of outlandish. So, I think the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around was the fact that I had to start saying no to a lot of things. And it's difficult as a pastor to do that because we want to be at the service at any time of those who are in need. That took me a little while to be able to process because I'm used to getting up early, making my holy hour, getting into the church for confessions and Mass. If it's a school day, if it's a day in which I'm at school, I get over here, and try and start, going through my to-do list of the things that I'm responsible for. But having to look at that and prioritize, and then not have the ability to push through the day. One thing that I found out was that the doctor said, well, you can do what your body can tolerate. And I said, well, how will I know? And he said, you'll know. And so there were plenty of days in which I'd be doing office work, or I'd be, here at the school or something, and all of a sudden, the chest is tight, it's having trouble breathing, and I just know that means I'm done for the day. And I would literally just have to cancel everything else on my schedule. That's hard. People reach out, for example, the meetings that I take during the week are people who set up meetings for direction because they're going through some difficulty in their life, marriage prep appointments, marriage counseling appointments, being sure that people have access to the sacraments, communion visits, go into our homebound parishioners who feel like it's safe enough for me to come into their homes, but maybe they're not able to leave their homes. All that kind of had to be put on the back burner. And it's hard to say no when you've given yourself to a life of service.
Yeah. So when you have to stay home and rest and things of that nature, how else did you, I guess, spend your time during this quarantine? So was it reading the Bible? Was it more prayer time or service or things?
Everybody thinks that priests just sit around reading the Bible in their free time. It's not true. It's not true at all. Yeah. When I felt, when I began to recover to the point that I could do sustained activity, even if it wasn't tough activity, I played quite a bit of golf.
Really?
Yeah. Because it was one of those things in which you can get outside, but you're not also, it's not cardio. You're riding around a golf cart and you're hitting a white ball around it. Yeah. So that was helpful to kind of get out of the house and still be able to not exert myself. But when it came to resting, I do like to read, not the Bible all the time, not spiritual theology. I love classic literature. I love novels. I love sci-fi literature. And so I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of just answering emails and catching up on things that we just kind of say, well, I'll get that done at some point. A lot of organizing and going through old files and things like that. And so I occupied myself. I watched a couple of seasons, a couple of different things on Netflix too. I mean, it's you just kind of look for something. Oh, that looks interesting, and then when you have that much time to rest, well, sometimes you get through a season in a week. So, so just kind of the normal things. Yeah. What never stopped was a regular rhythm of prayer. A lot of people were concerned even when the lockdown started. Is Father going to be okay? After I recovered from COVID, and then I was recovering from my pericarditis, people were wondering, like, are you going to be okay? It's like, well, I still have my 5 times that I have to pray during the day. I still have to say daily mass. I still have to make my holy hour. I still have to pray my rosary. Like, that doesn't change. And that gives life a rhythm, so that I just don't end up being idle. That's kind of the scary part when you're told, well, you can't do what you normally do. Then people kind of feel, well, what am I going to do? Well, I already have things that I have to do, whether I'm healthy or not. Actually, it's funny, in the hospital, I actually knew a doctor within the hospital system. I was on a COVID floor, so they wouldn't let anybody visit. But I have a portable altar for when I travel. It's about this big, and it unfolds and has everything I need in it. He snuck it in for me.
Awesome.
So I was actually offering mass in my hospital room. I just had to make sure I timed it so the nurse who was drawing my blood every 3 hours, didn't walk in while I was offering mass. What are you doing?
So what kind of feedback have you gained from this experience? And I guess just what do you take from it and move forward with, and I guess get a deeper understanding for, what do you get a deeper understanding for after this episode in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's very difficult for priests to find coverage, but I was very, I guess a solid takeaway is that one thing that I experienced was the brotherhood of the priesthood. Like, if I called up a priest and said, I'm taking a weekend off, he'd be like, yeah, I don't know if I can cover or not, right? Yeah. But when I reached out and I said, I'm in a situation in which I can't do my parish duties to 100%. I mean, a bunch of them reached out and were just like, let us know if you need us to cover a mass here or a mass there or whatever. Some of the priests who offered mass here at Bishop McGinnis, they were proactive, and they said, can we come and offer mass so that we can be present to the students, which is a great takeaway. Personally, though, a lot of people, I think the coronavirus still has a kind of a mystic sort of character to it. People are like, oh, you had it. Like, what was it like? Well, I think it's really like, it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Like I contracted it in November, and I had no other symptoms except for loss of taste and smell. That's how I knew that something was wrong, because I rapidly lost taste and smell. 2 days later, I tested. A day after that, the results came back positive. I have childhood asthma, and whenever I get a cold, flu, like my first indication that my health is wrong is my asthma kicks up. Like not serious, but I have trouble breathing.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to all these reports about it goes viral, then respiratory, right? And I'm like, oh Lord, like this hits me, it's gonna hit hard. I was there every single day, isolating at the rectory, like twiddling my thumbs, like, is today gonna be the day? And finally I call my doctor 10 days after I lost taste and smell. I'm like, nothing's happening. Like, I feel fine, I haven't run a fever, I got my taste and smell back. He's like, all right, you're one of the lucky ones. Get back to work. So of course I came back. It was 3 weeks after that that I woke up with debilitating chest pains. And so it stayed like attenuated in my system. So everyone's like, has this like mythical sort of like, you have a new take on life? Well, no. Pericarditis can be caused by a common cold.
Yeah.
if it just runs the course right.
Yeah.
And I was, and the beautiful thing about the priesthood is that, we have we should live our lives in such a way in which we have an extra time to consider that every day is a preparation for what? Eternal life. So let's say that, I died, rather than going to the ER, and I didn't realize what was going on and my heart stopped. That's what I live for anyways, right? Right? So if I'm in a state of grace, I have nothing to fear.
Absolutely.
A bus could hit me walking out. Hopefully not a school
Well,
bus.
I would hope not a
bus.
bus.
Hopefully not a school bus.
A little painful.
Those coaches, I've seen them drive. No. But the point is, it wasn't anything life-changing, because suffering is just part of human existence.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we try to remove so many types of suffering from our life that we fear when we're being told by everyone, well, you could get sick. Yeah. I could get food poisoning too from the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Probably not. Those ladies are very good at what they do. But the point is, there's so much that does afflict us. So it certainly didn't cause any huge changes in my life, except what I had to do in order to make sure that my heart, remained healthy.
Would you say you're, I guess going back to the 5 prayer schedule you had now, did that give you a little more, I guess, stability, because you were keeping a schedule rather than everything being thrown out the window in the beginning and then you started to get slowly back into it?
Absolutely. In fact, I was just reminded of this recently when I was preparing something for a group at the church. There was a priest who told our high school youth group when I was a boy, he said, show me your planner, like show me your calendar, and I'll tell you what you worship. Right?
Yeah.
Because our time is directly proportionate to what we hold most important in life.
Absolutely.
So the 5 prayer periods that I was talking about, that's the liturgy of the hours, right? So the divine office, which Christians have been praying since the early church.
Yeah.
And so that never stopped. When we keep a routine and we keep a schedule, even if it's mundane, even if it looks different than usual, the order of our day should be directly related to what we find most important. So with that, this is why I always tell people, like, have kind of a plan of life, right? You don't have to be a slave to it, but when we order our life in that way, order is godliness. Yes. Right? Chaos is not. Right? If you that's why Saint Therese says that the cleanliness of one's room is a window into the soul. Right? If there's disorder in their bedroom, it probably means that there's also disorder in their soul. You guys have messy rooms.
Yeah.
Right? But when we keep order, then we more easily discern the things that come from without. Temptation, messaging, responsibilities that fly out of the blue. So that order and structure is necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for your time.